Perry, Isabella Tam, and Anaya Baez of the Girl Scout Troop 6116 lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thanks for coming, girls. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, girls. And you're obviously not required to stay. Thank you so much for bringing them. Are there any agenda changes? Are there any agenda changes, Mr. Spriggs?
I have no agenda changes to suggest. Thank you. Anyone else?
Now we have council reports, starting Mr. Patton.
Okay, I'll try to go in order here. This Sunday is a Super Frog triathlon in Imperial Beach, and they start checking in on Friday. They're training around here on Saturday, and Sunday it starts at 6:15 in the morning, and it's a full-on triathlon. And we want to welcome all those athletes to Imperial Beach. It's a great crew. They fill up our hotels. They use our restaurants. They enjoy our beaches. They stop at our local shops. And so I think it's a big deal. And I'm going to shoot off the cannon at 6:15 in the morning on Sunday morning to start the swim. If you want to come down and join me, 6:15, I'm looking for all of you. And I know, I'm going to set my alarm. Tomorrow night, community open house, which is also a big deal at Veterans Park from 5 to 7. It's a great opportunity for everybody to meet with department heads from the city and just in a different atmosphere instead of behind a counter or at your door. It's a great opportunity just to touch bases with them, ask questions. Council members will be there, the mayor will be there, city manager and whatnot. It's a great event. Veterans Park tomorrow. 5 to 7 p.m. Four Corners Community Park on Date and Seacoast is coming along. If you haven't seen it yet, there's some nice statues, murals, things going on with a lot of our community members just doing tile work, kids, whatnot. And lastly, this is way off in the distance, the BID, Business Improvement District, and the Chamber, they're doing our second annual Imperial Beach Military Appreciation Day. And that is going to be Saturday, November 12th from 12 to 4, Pier Plaza. There'll be a lot more information on that one, but you know, Imperial Beach, we support our military 100%. That's all. Thank you.
Ms. Bragg.
Thank you. As our representative to the Metropolitan Transit System, I did have 2 meetings last Thursday. We had our regular board meeting. Most of that meeting was taken up with closed session items. And also we had our accessibility committee meeting, and I'm very pleased to announce that the first 5 buses out of 48 will arrive next week. These are new paratransit buses, and that's our largest growing demographic of users is people with disabilities. And this is a very important committee for the Metropolitan Transit System. If you know of anybody who has disabilities and does not know how to use our system, does not know how to ride it, or has concerns, please have them contact MTS. And at both meetings, the presentation was about the Transportation Optimization Plan, which is a plan that the MTS is undergoing. Hasn't had a study on our transportation needs and assessment in 10 years. So this is something that seems to happen once every 10 years by most agencies in the country. I would urge all of you to go to the MTS website. It is www.sdmts.com. Please take the survey. It's very short. It's shorter than our recreational needs survey was, I promise you that. But there's a lot of information that we hope to gather as to why people do use the system and why people don't use the system. So your input is desperately needed and appreciated. I did want to just congratulate Wild Coast for a great Dempsey Holder Surf contest last weekend. One of the largest turnouts, I think, in the history of the contest. And I do have to do a little bragging. My grandson did compete and took for fifth in his age category.
And he was shredding.
Yeah,
so
he
it's good
did.
to
He
see
did
that.
great. I do have a couple of community events coming up that I would like to announce. One that we're pleased is the South County Economic Development Council. The city of Imperial Beach is hosting the reception. This is the reception for elected officials in the county. It will be October 6th, Thursday at Imperial Beach Pier Plaza. Of course, obviously, all of us will be there. I do have a commitment from our Imperial Beach historical group that will be proudly displaying the history of Imperial Beach. We think it's important that other elected officials in the county see the deep, deep history that Imperial Beach has. So we hope to see you all there as well. The Imperial Beach Kiwanis and the VFW is also hosting. This is their very first annual Sock Hop fundraiser. And you all know that the Imperial Beach Kiwanis is a tremendous civic organization here in the city that donates so much money every year to many, many activities. So it's going to be Saturday, October 8th from 6 to 11. If you haven't been to a sock hop in a long time, get out those saddle shoes. It's time to shake, rattle, and roll. And then proudly, the Unified Port District of San Diego and the city of Imperial Beach is hosting one of our community's most favorite events, the Symphony by the Sea. Free concert Saturday, October 1st at Pier Plaza at 6:30. Please arrive early. That event is very popular and space is limited. So again, we hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Spriggs.
Wow, what's left to announce?
There's a whole lot going on.
I'm just checking off everything that I was going to say. But I do want to reiterate how important it is for everyone to come out, as Councilmember Patton mentioned, tomorrow's open government open house at Veterans Park. This is really consistent with our desire to be as transparent as possible and to have any and all questions answered about how things work in the city government. And this will be the opportunity for the staff of the city to shine. It's been noticed as a possible public meeting of the city council because it's possible that 3 of us may be there or more, in which case that would be a quorum. So that's why you've got that public notice there. We don't really plan to have a council meeting tomorrow night, but it's an opportunity for everyone to see how their city government works. I missed the last city council meeting because I was at the California Adaptation Forum 2 weeks ago, which is a 2-day forum held for the second year in Los Angeles, Long Beach actually, to bring all the folks from the state and the country together who are interested in how cities are working to adapt to climate change. Cities all over the country, including especially California, are experiencing heat waves, hot spots in the city that are dangerous, more wildfires, drought and water issues, as well as the beginnings of concerns about sea level rise. So all of these issues were discussed at the forum, and I was particularly interested in how cities finance measures to address and adapt to these challenges. And so there were several workshops that I attended on that subject, and I'd be happy to share the details with any council members or city staff if you're interested. I should mention that Jim Nakagawa from our staff, who's in the audience, our senior planner, was also there, and he follows these issues very closely. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So yeah, we all had a busy weekend, and I think we have Stephen Wright from Four Walls going to give a little update on his project, but spent the weekend helping out our People's Park project, which is, I think they had more than 150 volunteers, so that was great. And then was able to visit Mr. Levine. Where are you, Hank? Are you here? Back. Oh, anyway, and with his wonderful Boy Scout Troop 53. Hank, we were just talking about how great you are. So anyway, and who are doing a paving project, a sidewalk paving project with pavers over by the Public Works Yard, and that was great to see. Absolutely amazingly great kids. So that was awesome. And I just talked to a Boy Scout dad today who would like to have his son, he's from Eastlake, do a project in IB. So that's great. So it's great to tell him that we have a long tradition of that. So, and as a former Boy Scout, it's great to see that. And then, so it rained. That's awesome. So as some of the city staff know, I was up at 4 a.m. yesterday, checking the weather. It was foggy. Well, it was foggy and it had lightning the night before. And then yesterday morning it hadn't rained, and busily checking the online river gauge for the Tijuana River, which apparently was already flowing, which means the diverter pipe might have been turned off. And if you don't know, Mexico controls the diverter pipe, which means the flow goes into the United States and then ends up at our beach. So we were busily on email. I'm not sure if it was 4:30 in the morning or 5:30 in the morning. My first email went out to the consul of Mexico in the US in San Diego to ask that that diverter pipe stay open as long as possible. We only thought there was going to be a little bit of rain. Unfortunately, I was assured that it would be. We heard from the people that actually managed the diverter pipe, and they told us it would stay on. Unfortunately, as it rained and rained and rained, the volume of water in that river, and we have an online gauge so we can actually measure we can see how much water's in the river. It started flowing, and at noon we got a message from Mexico that they turned the diverter pipe off. One thing I'd like to say is that we had more communication on the management of that diverter pipe than in the history of Imperial Beach. And that's because not only that, we had written letters to the ambassador of the U.S. in Mexico, the consul of Mexico in San Diego, the U.S. consul in Tijuana, and then our senators and our Congressman Juan Vargas to say, and the head of the National Boundary and Water Commission to say that before our triathlon, we needed that diverter pipe to stay open and for Mexico to do everything humanly possible to make sure that our beaches wouldn't be polluted. Of course, we didn't know a hurricane was going to hit Baja California and cause us rain. So right now, our lifeguards have been doing almost 3 times the daily reports on the status of water quality. We actually met with the county yesterday to talk about water quality testing. And we have the Ironman this weekend. We've been communicating with the Ironman folks. Our main beach is not closed yet, but we have south wind and a south swell, possibly pushing the sewage pollution that's at the Tijuana River, which that area is closed right now. So that's something we're going to be on. But I did talk to a representative of the governor of Baja California today and said, you know what? Let's commit to a 5-year plan. Let's commit to the fact that in 5 years, we can actually get done the things that need to be done to fix this problem. And the fact is, as I talked to County Supervisor Greg Cox yesterday, this isn't rocket science. It's not complicated. It just means that we shouldn't be dumping sewage in the Tijuana River or in the ocean on either side of the border. The fact that we're actually dumping sewage that we're all paying to pump sewage uphill, to dump it, to treat it, and then dump it in the ocean is an absolutely crazy waste of taxpayer resources. So we're going to be working on that, and we'll be monitoring the sewage. The worst thing is that I didn't surf today, and the surf was absolutely firing. It was the absolute best day of like the last 6 months. So that absolutely killed me. So anyway, and with that, I will sign off. Mr. Hall.
Yeah, we hate the days when the mayor doesn't get to surf.
Yeah, that's the worst thing that happens.
I just wanted to add to the open house that's been talked about a little bit. It's not just city staff. I wanted everybody to know there's been a lot of questions about things like Ninth and Palm, what stores might be going in there, which ones may not. So we've asked Sudbury to be there. The Navy's going to be there to talk about the coastal campus. Camp Surf is coming and bringing hot dogs for everybody that wants hot dogs, Boys and Girls Club. So it'll be, all the community groups will be there and be able to answer your questions. So we invite everyone out. And then Mayor, we have a quick announcement from our election supervisor in the city, our city clerk, Jackie Hall.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The League of Women's Voters and the IB Chamber of Commerce are hosting the Candidates Forum on September 28th from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. in the Boys and Girls Club.
Great, thank you. Okay, now we have the fun stuff. We have 19 speaker slips. And first of all, we live in the greatest country in the world. We live in the greatest democracy in the world. And we are so pleased to have this chamber filled with people who are going to express themselves. And I know all you want to speak, but generally when there's 2 of you, it's 3 minutes. I'd love to ask you to keep to 2 minutes. tell us we want to hear from you, but we just like to make sure everyone has a chance to speak and we get done with the meetings, the evening's business. So just make sure that let's try to refrain from yelling or clapping. Be respectful and courteous. Please, last time we had folks speak on this issue, there was a curse word used. I'd like to avoid that, please. Have some decorum. And then this is a business meeting, so please don't interrupt or delay the meeting. And we just encourage everyone to follow the rules of decorum. And again, thank you so much for being here. So again, really try to keep within 2 minutes. Let us know what your opinion is, and that's fine. But we just like to make sure everyone has a chance to speak. So right now we have Stephen Heverly from about the Quality of Life Dashboard.
Thank you, Mayor Dedina and City Council members. My name is Stephen Heverly. I'm here representing the Equinox Project at the Center for Sustainable Energy. Equinox Project is a local research think tank program. We focus on sustainability issues that promote not only a clean environment and environmental quality, but a strong economy as well. And I brought a copy of our flagship product with me today, the Quality of Life Dashboard. This is the 7th annual Quality of Life Dashboard. In the dashboard, we objectively examine 15 different economic and environmental indicators, charting emerging progress in key areas of both, as I said, economic prosperity, but also transportation, housing, water, climate change, and many more. This review, which we've done it for 7 years, has evolved into a key tool for elected officials, executives, and community leaders and other regional thought leaders to quickly and concisely obtain a perspective on the trends that are happening around the region as they affect our quality of life. We understand that you as decision makers, and not only your elected city council members, but you probably also have full-time jobs as it is. You're faced with an enormous amount of information on a daily basis related to any amount of issues. And this, we also understand that data alone don't tell a great story. So we want to encourage you to read and use this often, because not only are we projecting some data in a visually engaging way, but we're also putting some context in there and providing some solutions and best practices from around the region. So take a look. Our contact information is in the dashboard in that letter that was included in there. And hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful. Thank you. Now we have Stephen Wright. And again, you have 2 minutes.
Let me please first apologize. Forgive my appearance. Trust me that the hat means no disrespect. It's just we need to keep this thing tamed down a little bit. Just came in from work, and I also wanted to preface. I apologize. There's probably a lot of people in this room that don't see themselves in the photos. This is a quick little put together so that you guys can get an update on the People's Parks project down on Seacoast Avenue. I want to start off saying thank you so much, city staff. Absolutely came in crucial, and it was really a pleasure working with everybody from city staff. I want to say thank you to the community of Imperial Beach, all the local organizations and businesses that have come out, and the vision of Mayor Dedina and the city council and supporting this project. I got to tell you a little bit about what I've seen. We have very, very, very real danger right now. And that is that a lot of people here are not going to have their chance to get their tiles in the mosaic. All right. We have 2 days till we got to wrap this thing up. And you can see there's a lot of transformation that happened. A lot of people from the community came out. This is us accepting $1,500 from IB Fitness. Very cool. A lot of businesses in town gave some money. Working with local artists here, and you can see a lot of this stuff coming up. We did this. This is about 7 days of work, what you drive by and see now. And I have to tell you that it's been quite a beautiful experience here working in Imperial Beach. We've done this all over the world, and to do it in a place that we call home is very special. And I can tell you that what I've seen, that what makes this place so amazing is that we have so many different people that have thrown down on this project. And what really brings our community together is our love of Imperial Beach. And that has not been any more clear than out on the job site down on Seacoast. We have people from all different socioeconomic, racial, ethnic,
Stephen,
religious.
you have basically got to wrap
Oh,
it up.
yep. There's so much more. Everybody, kind of ends up leaving looking like me right now. And we just really look forward to doing this again and again in Tenton
Great,
Iris.
thank you.
So thank you very much, guys.
Thanks so much. Very nice to see your team out there. And we have Michelle Huffman. And again, remember, if you can, 2 minutes, even speak less. We've got, I think, more than 20 now. So we can, everyone can get through the evening. Thank you.
Hi
And just
there.
state your name. You don't have to say your address, but if you don't
My
want
name
to.
is Michelle Huffman. Hello, Mayor and council members. So I just wanted to ask, in short, to please rescind the proclamation that you stated for the Welcoming Cities Proclamation. I first of all want to also commend you on your humanitarian efforts. I feel that you and I both come from the same history, family history. I also come from a family of immigrants. I am fully Hispanic. My parents came to this country wanting a future for themselves, a safe future, somewhere where they can call home and just invest in their communities. But I'm afraid that with the information that we have been given over these last several months, several years, we're not in the same place anymore. We can't just trust anyone. And we know that a lot of the people that come over and seeking asylum, calling themselves refugees, are unvetted. They're not safe. And we are, I believe, are opening a can of worms when we make a proclamation like this. I went online to search for what this proclamation really meant, and I really couldn't find anything regarding Imperial Beach's proclamation. So I was forced to go to other cities. And what I found was a little scary. And there was just a lot of things, a lot of red flags. So until we are sure what we are proclaiming and what we are joining ourselves to, I think it'd be safe to just rescind that and just be a little safer for the safety of our children and for the safety of our community. Thank
Great,
you
thank
very
you,
much.
Michelle. Now we have Carol Hamilton. Carol Hamilton. Is Carol Hamilton here? Oh, okay.
Thank you. Carol Hamilton, Imperial Beach, California. I'll be short. I would respectfully request that you retract the proclamation to declare us a welcoming city. The organizations that promoted this have a financial interest in placing the burden of refugees, asylees, and immigrants in our community because they are paid by the government to do so. The law of unintended consequences is in play, and we may be inviting terrorists and gang members. And ladies and gentlemen, has anyone here ever seen a sign in front of anybody's lawn, anywhere in front of City Hall that says, "You are not welcome to live in the city of Imperial Beach"? I don't think so. Therefore, there was no need for this proclamation. It was strictly political. Please rescind it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Now we have Kyle Edwards. You know what I'm going to do is, why don't we stand in line? So I'll call Kyle and then Marcus, Danny, Roger, and Kevin. Why don't you stand, be just kind of on the line over there, and then we can just get up. And thanks, Kyle.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Kyle, recent Imperial Beach resident and homeowner. I've been active duty for 9 years. I've been stationed overseas for about 6 years. I have about 6 combat tours. Recently returned from Iraq. I had no idea that this proclamation was before this council. I was very curious how this council had pulsed the community for its participation and whether or not it concurred with this proclamation you put forward. I've spent 9 years working on combating terrorism, and in lieu of many of the recent events, most notably what happened in New York City and New Jersey on Saturday, I wonder if any of the members here have any changes to how they voted for this proclamation, knowing that the nationalized citizen was an asylee originally from Afghanistan. Very curious. I'm very curious who you've consulted in terms of subject matter expertise within radicalization of some of the members of our society, how they've gotten to the United States. I'm curious what the federal funding is that's been awarded as part of the task force on new Americans, of which I understand that this proclamation is part of. Very curious. Again, I would ask that you rescind this proclamation because it's been very poorly executed, and I don't think it was democratic at all. And I question you, Mayor. You greeted me today saying how you love democracy. This was not passed democratically. That's all I have.
Thank you. Now we have Marcus Guerra. We have Marcus Guerra. Thank you.
Great, thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is Marcus Guerra. I'm a resident and homeowner here in Imperial Beach, and I ask as well that you all rescind this proclamation of Imperial Beach being a welcoming city. I mean, it's just striking to me how poorly executed it was and how, first of all, you can't find any information about this thing online, period, anywhere. I just learned of it yesterday, just like many other people here, and IB learned of it just yesterday by word of mouth. And I went about town. Virtually every single person I spoke to had no idea that this was passed, that this was enacted, period. And every single person that I spoke to, that I mentioned this to, every single one of them were jarred by it. They were shocked by it, and they did not care for this at all. Like, it just kind of popped up from nowhere. And yes, I get this idea that we should be compassionate, we should be caring, but we should also be very smart about how we're compassionate with people. I don't, so far as I've been able to turn up, I've seen no discussions on how this is going to be practically implemented in Imperial Beach. What does this mean? First of all, what is the magnitude of this? How many families are we talking about? 4, 100? And housing. Imperial Beach, as it is right now, housing is tight enough for all of these. So you're going to put even more of a squeeze on people in this town. It just, by devoting housing to refugee families, it just doesn't make any sense to me. The funding, where is it going to come from? The housing, and what shape and form is this going to take place? Does this mean that the entire landscape is going to be dappled with Section 8 housing? As a homeowner, that doesn't thrill me at all. And often where Section 8 is, home values, some of them devolve into slum-like conditions. That's not something that I want to see, and that's not something that Imperial Beach wants to see, the citizens, I'm sure. That just doesn't make any sense to me. We're supposed to be on the up. Prices are high enough already as it is here. So, and let us not forget too, like, where there is low income, there is higher crime. We don't even have a police force here. We have the sheriff's department, not to discredit them, but we don't have local
Thanks, Mr.
police.
Guerra. It's 2 minutes. Thank you so much. Great, thank you.
Thanks for the limited time.
Mr. Carroll. And then after Mr. Huffman, we have Mr. Griffiths or Griffs. So if you want to stand up there, and then we have Michelle Dedina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is not an ordinary and council. This is not your ordinary next Tuesday is Grandmother's Day proclamation. This is a very serious document. It was brought upon us by outside organizations who have a pecuniary interest in placing these people in Imperial Beach. They get paid by the government for doing that. We're not equipped to handle that. We'd like to, but I'm sorry, we're just not. It's being pushed on us, and we need to think about rescinding this. Give us a chance to look at it again and talk about it, because as it stands, it looks like the proclamation might as well be posted on Imperial Beach Boulevard and Palm Avenue at the city limits and said, all refugees, asylees, and immigrants, please check in at City Hall for housing, education, medical care, food, anything you need. We just can't afford to do this here. We are a welcoming city, and we welcome everybody, but we have to rethink this process and involve the citizens in it. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ogden. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Danny Carroll. And please state your name for the record. I think you have
My
that.
name is Danny Carroll. I lived in this city for 50 years. I served 20 years in the military, and I took an oath when I went in to protect this country against all enemies, foreign and domestics. I think we have some domestics now. I want to say, before I get really started, the definition of a couple of words. An immigrant is a foreign national alien who legally immigrated to the U.S. and was granted lawful permanent resident status by the U.S. government. Whereas a foreign national is illegally smuggled into the U.S. or violated a visa, then that person is an unauthorized illegal alien, present to the laws of the United States and are subject to deportation under the Title 8 of the U.S. Code 1227, deportable alien. We're all immigrants here, unless you're a full-blooded Indian, and I don't see none of them here. My family came from Ireland and Scotland, but they came legally. You're opening the door here with this proclamation, just like a sanctuary city. I don't know why you didn't call it that instead of welcoming city, because if you read them, it's the same thing. You backdoored this, you went to a back room, you said, we're going to do this. You did not let the people of this community know. So therefore, I ask that you rescind this motion. I ask that you do not undermine the citizens' right to decide for themselves, yes or no, whether we'd like this. Put it on a ballot. Let us vote. If you win, I'll back you. If you don't, shame on you if you try to push it through. I ask that you do not undermine the laws of the U.S., which you are trying to do here. I ask that you do not add new laws when we have enough laws on the book. I do ask that you enforce the laws that we have on the books. Just as the other young man said a few minutes ago, you said that you love democracy. If you do, then rescind this thing, put it on the ballot, and let us vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ogden? Mr. Ogden?
I'm not from IB, so if you would shuffle me to the back, I think I'm probably not going to speak.
I'm sorry, are you Mr. Ogden?
Yeah.
So you don't want to speak?
My card to the back.
But you don't want to speak?
I'm thinking there's going to be so many, they're going to say it all.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Griss?
Kevin Huffman.
I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mayor, Council. My name is Kevin Huffman, and I want to give you just a real quick background on me. I'm fourth generation Imperial Beach. My children are fifth generation. I'm very vested, and I have a lot of my heart's here in Imperial Beach. When I learned about this proclamation and I started to do homework and try and find out what it was, what it meant, and where it was going, I really couldn't find any information. Just today when I walked up, somebody handed me the proclamation so I could read it. And what I've been left to do over the last several days after learning about this was to go online and to read. When I looked at Chicago, Raleigh, North Carolina, and other cities, what I saw was lack of law enforcement and lack of immigration enforcement. So really, where are we going with this? If this is a proclamation, why not make it a city law? Why not put it up for the vote? It seems very sneaky and underhanded, Mr. Dedina. Okay? Why would you do it this way instead of put it up for city vote? And I have to tell you, you live in this city, and history will judge you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
Now we have Michelle Dedina, my dad.
You may notice the similarity between my last name and the last name of the mayor. That's my son over there. Some 70 years ago, I was a little 6-year-old Jewish kid in war-torn Europe, who by some miracle made it to America with my brother and our Jewish mom. Our cousins who stayed in Europe, many of them were murdered by the Nazis. When we arrived in America, we were welcomed. Not by everybody, but a lot of people did welcome. Good feeling. Now, in our time, little Muslim boys and girls are being killed. in the Middle East. We must welcome as many of them, those kids, and their families as possible. America is a welcoming nation. I'll stay part of that.
Excuse me, you've all had the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Please observe decorum. Thank you. I recognize everybody's very emotional, but it's really important to have decorum and respect everybody's right to speak. And the more we do that, the more everybody gets to actually speak and get their time to speak. Thank you very much. Now, John Lawley. After John, it's Earl Harris, then Bia and Ed Reyes, Phyllis Reyes, and Richard, I'm not sure what the last name is. Mr. Lawley.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, like several others here, I'm the great-grandson of an immigrant. I'm the grandson of an immigrant, and I'm the spouse of an immigrant. They all came here legally, so the problem I have with your proclamation has nothing to do with immigration. I have a problem with, as several others have said, I knew nothing about this proclamation before it was made. All of you were elected to office to represent the families, the voters, the taxpayers of Imperial Beach. You need to inform us. Mr. Spriggs, in 2010, you listed online that one of your things was about government transparency. I see no transparency regarding this proclamation. Let the populace speak. If the majority is in favor of this, I will wholeheartedly support it. Like several others here, I also took an oath to support and defend this Constitution. I've served 26 years in uniform. I've lived in Imperial Beach on and off since 1996. The only times I haven't lived here is when I've been deployed for the United States Navy. I love this city. I plan on raising my family here and living here for the next 40 to 50 years. You need to let the people speak. I'm not questioning your motives. I'm not questioning anybody's agendas, but you didn't let the population know about this. You didn't let the voters and the taxpayers know about this. Listen to the people that you were elected to represent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Now we have Mr. Harris.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, Earl Harris, and privileged resident, Vietnam veteran. You guys went to school with my kids. Bringing in immigrants is what we're all about, but unvetted immigrants from a war-torn nation with full of terrorists and all that is not welcome here in Imperial Beach. It's not part of what we're here for. We have enough problems with the Mexican border. You can talk to the Border Patrol, even letting them in and paying them to come in, and that's what's happening here. You're all elected officials and you can all be recalled. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Bia. We have Bia Blina. Sorry, did I pronounce that correctly? And after that, we have Ed De Los Reyes, and then we have Richard, I'm not sure, CR? Oh, okay. And then we have Jerry Quinn, and then we have Dave Wilkins after that, and then we have D. Pierce. Bia, thank you.
No, it's B. Thank you. My name is B. Lacey.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I have been a San Diego resident for over 40 years, an Imperial Beach resident for over 9. When I first came to San Diego, I would have never come to Imperial Beach. And it's gotten so much better, that now I own a home. I'm glad I'm here. My kids will continue to live here. And I just want them to be safe and to have the good things that I know Imperial Beach can be. And I'm not sure that bringing in illegal aliens and people from the Middle East who haven't been vetted is the word, I guess. I'm not sure that's a good idea. So I would just like to say that I oppose Imperial Beach being proclaimed a welcome city.
Thank you, B. And we have Ed. Ed, are you related to Barbara?
Yes,
Oh,
I am.
okay, so I went to school with Barbara.
Yes, I know. My name's Ed Delos Reyes. I got in Imperial Beach in 1947. The only time I left, excuse me, was when I went to service. And I salute my brother. What you've done, as you know, is totally out of line. I also suggest that you rescind your proclamation. You are not a dictator. You are the mayor of Imperial Beach. I think you should act accordingly. Have your constituents, vote on whether we need to have this in our town. I love this city. Just everybody else here does. Think about what you've done.
Great, thank you, Mr. Los Reyes. And we have Richard Garcia.
My name is Richard Garcia. Like many others, I had no idea about this proclamation. I didn't know. My neighbor just came up to me about an hour and a half ago. He told me, and we started scrambling and letting other neighbors know. And I think the right thing to do is to put it on a ballot. Put it on a ballot, see what happens. But my overall issue is really with the vetting process. We just recently, the federal government made an error and granted over 850 people citizenship in error. And the vetting process is not right. It's also if you watch the political campaign right now, you see that the vetting process is one of the issues. So one person is saying that we need the efforts of Silicon Valley in order to assist us in the vetting process. Another one says that we need to do what Israel does and use a different approach, and where we're using other approaches. So the vetting process is an issue. And because the vetting process it itself has its own errors, how could we just allow people in? We just can't. It's a security threat. It's a security issue. So I ask that because people don't know about it in the city, because of the vetting process, put it on a ballot so that people can vote on it. It's the right thing to do.
Great, thank you. Mr. Wilkins? Mr. Wilkins? Sorry, did I miss you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is
Thank you.
Dave Wilkins. I'm a 59-year resident of Imperial Beach. When I moved here, the streets were still dirt. So this was, I've been here a long time. One of the reasons I'm still here is because, in my opinion, this is one of the safest cities in the city of San Diego to live in. We don't have the illegal alien problem that we used to have coming across the border all the time now. And the only reason people are here is because they live here. We don't have the problem with the homeless people here like they do in all the other cities. And I tell people all the time, this is a good place to come and live. I'm a business owner here. I'm a citizen, and I empathize with your father and what he was having to say. But the difference is, the people that were coming from war-torn Europe in World War II were not terrorists. They were not from terrorist backgrounds. Okay, they came here to start a life and be safe. If 1% of these people you want to bring here are terrorists, your family, my grandchildren, your children are in danger. We do not need to bring that to this city. That's right.
Great.
That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. I just love to ask everybody just to observe some decorum and let folks speak so we can get on to make sure we get through everybody. And now I have Mr. Pierce, or D. Pierce. Sorry, Mrs. Pierce.
Yes, hello, my name is Danushka Pierce. I'm permanent resident. I've been in Imperial Beach. I lived here for 26 years and I'm legal. And I do oppose, I've learned about it about 2 hours ago. I just came back from work. Nice meeting you in person, Mr. Hall. I've spoken with you before. Yes, I've just learned about it 2 hours ago on my way back from work, and I'm just shocked. I'm appalled, and I'm really very upset about it. So I definitely oppose that sanctuary city, and it shouldn't be the way you are proposing. That's really, it shouldn't be the way you're thinking. So you know, that's why I'm voting for Donald Trump, because he's awesome. I love this guy. And maybe it's something for you to learn from him.
Great.
And
Thank you.
I actually, because of what you're doing, I believe you should be impeached.
Great, thank you. Jerry, I think I missed you, didn't I? Sorry, buddy.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
How you doing?
Some of you know me, Mr. Patton. Thank you. My name is Jerry Quinn, former federal officer, United States Department of Justice, and living in the city for 16 years. As you know, when a subject comes up that I feel passionate about, I rally my residents. As I've done here today, I just want to put on the record, I do have a petition. I have over 300 signatures, and we'll be handing that in even more. I oppose this proclamation. Again, I don't know. I would like to know who voted on it and how it came about. As you say, in transparency, you all are elected officials, and some of you are up for re-election. Remember that in the next couple of months. Please listen to the citizens. As I told you, the last council meeting, that a majority of the citizens in this city are adamantly against this, and I think tonight it proves it. I told you I was going to rally, and I did. Mr. Mayor, you say that you are, and I do call you a friend. You are a friend, so don't take this personal. But you are a elected official, and it's my understanding that you also run a nonprofit. I think you should make it transparency about who's donating to that nonprofit, so we all should know about that. Also, your wife as well. There's a lot of things going on in the city, a lot of projects, and I know you're behind a lot of them. And I would like to see who's donating to your agency and what interest they have. So I challenge you tonight to make that public.
Can I just respond to that? Is that possible for me to respond to? Because you can go to wildcoast.net right now on your smartphones.
brief
and-
comments
I'm asking you because you said you're transparent.
And you
because
can
a
go
lot
to
of people-
wildcoast.net on your smartphones right now,
Yes.
and our tax returns actually are on the web with all our donors.
Okay.
So anybody, if you can email me and I'll send you that link. So all our tax returns are public record.
So I would like you to rescind this proclamation, and I'd like you to respect the residents of Imperial Beach. We are the majority here.
Mr. Quinn,
Listen to what we have to say.
You're out of time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Now we have Dalton. So we have Dalton, Bob, Ruth, and then we have Stephen. So if you guys want to just stand in line so we can get moving. Dalton? Yeah. So Dalton, Bob, Ruth, and then Stephen.
How you doing? My name is Dalton Brown Edge. I'm an Eagle Scout for Boy Scouts of America, and also I'm an overnight guide on the USS Midway. And I want to clarify that the American people are a little bit disappointed in what's been going on lately. For this is a serious matter, and the people should be heads up a week before this even happens whatsoever, because understand, I know we all want to be very kind and respectful of bringing refugees into the United States and bring them into our city. I'm okay with that. But the problem is there has been actions taken in the United States where it's threatening, like San Bernardino, Florida, New Jersey, and New York. That is absolutely dangerous, bringing these Syrians in. And I want to also clarify when it comes to, bringing Muslims in here, and these people, we love these people, but the thing is, here's a little history fact. In 1933, Hitler allied with the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Muslims' religion is to basically anyone that does not approve in Muslim and you're a Christian should be basically killed or so on. Christians, Jews, and also gays and females don't even have the freedom that we have right now. Basically, over there, they have no freedom of speech. And if they do, they're basically throwing rocks at them. And if you bring them in here, and I would say, ladies and gentlemen, I would say I oppose this, and we should not have these people in until we have a further investigation to know who these terrorists are in the refugees, and basically be safe for our families and for basically all Americans, including the military. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dalton. And we have Ruth. Ruth Cole. And I'm sorry, did I miss Bob Gonzalez? I'm sorry. Ruth, could you hold on? I'm sorry. Bob, so sorry about that. Ruth, I apologize.
Battling lupus, so I'm having a tough time today.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
I lost my godson in 2007. He used himself as a decoy in Afghanistan. Got a bronze and Purple Heart for that, and also had an uncle that was shot down in World War II. I don't know how we came to this process of not vetting the people coming over here, since my dad was born in Mexico and he has to show his card every time he comes across the border. And I'm saying is, why are we allowing so many people to come over before they don't wait in line to be vetted and get their card like everybody else supposed to? We live on the corner across the street from the high school, and we had a ponderosa pine growing there. And when I cut that pine tree down, I found pants, clothes, jackets, food from illegal people that were staying there at on that tree that was above my house. My beautiful wife and I have been together since '71, married. We're San Diegans. So, I think we should go through the vetting process the way it should be done and not allow a bunch of people to come over without vetting them properly. If not, we're going to have a lot of problems.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gonzalez. Now we have Ruth Cole.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Ruth Cole, 326 Elder Avenue, Imperial Beach. I've lived here over 30 years. I raised my kids here. I have a small business here since 2009, and I am totally in support of this initiative. I know the reason that you did it is because it's the right thing to do. I'm sorry about the lack of, I just found out about it reading it on the web like 20 minutes ago. So I came after work. Excuse me, I get a little emotional hearing all this vitriol. But we all are from immigrants. My grandmother is an immigrant. We are the United States of America. These people who are coming as refugees have been in internment camps waiting to get somewhere, right? They are vetted. So if you look at...
Excuse me, everybody has allowed everyone
Rubbish.
respectfully to speak.
So I think we need to listen to Michelle Dedina's statement of his experience of coming here. The people that are coming here are vetted. They aren't allowed on the shores unless, yeah, they are.
Excuse me.
Donald Trump Jr.'s meme of his bowl of Skittles has been proved ridiculous. So if you say three, oh, well, I'm sorry, a lot of people from the United States. What about the Oklahoma City bombing? Come on now, people. We have a police department. Thank you. Donald Trump Jr.'s meme of the bowl of Skittles, turns out that if mathematically, if you look at it, it's 1.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools of Skittles that it would take to have
We're out of
3
time.
people
Thank you
that are
so much.
off.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that's it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you
you.
very much.
Mr.
I think it
Heavily.
was the right thing to do, maybe a little more transparency.
Excuse me. You know what's great about this country is we give everyone an opportunity to speak. Everyone has an equal opinion. Everyone should be allowed to speak without interruption. We all allowed everyone to do that respectfully. Most of you behaved brilliantly and beautifully, and we thank you for all of you did. So please give that decorum and respect to everyone else, because we all gave it to you. So now we have Stephen Haverly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm putting on my regular citizen hat here. I'm Stephen Haverly, a resident of the city of San Diego. I'm glad I was here this evening because I wanted to just stand up and support the city council's decision to proclaim Imperial Beach as a welcoming city. There are over 65 million folks displaced from their homes right now today, and that's 1 in 113 of us. So if we have 113 folks in this room, one of us could be one of those folks that are displaced from their home, and it's because of war. there are cities out there where these folks are being displaced from that don't have water, they don't have food. Their leaders are attacking them with chemical weapons, and they're just trying to find a safe place to live. Secondly, you know, out of the 65 million folks out there, more than 50% of them are children and women. I do a lot of work in this issue aside from my work in the environmental arena, and I just wanted to help clear the record on some of these issues. You know, in providing a welcoming community for refugees is improving opportunities to contribute to the cultural and economic fabric of our community and improve our economy. And unfortunately, the hateful rhetoric that's happening in the political campaigns and a little bit here tonight, I hope that people can reconsider and look at the facts and take home some positive information about refugees today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Much. Thank you very much, Mr. Heavily. And now we have Ramon Cherez.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, local IB residents. I've been a long time local. I went to high school here back in the early 90s. I've seen the community change. Back when I was going to school, and a lot of people in the room will remember this, there was a lot of racial tension in our community. I remember growing up right by the border and being bused to Mar Vista High School. And I remember there being a lot of skinheads, you know, a lot of biker gangs, and a lot of that stuff filtered down through all our schools. And I remember those racial fights that we used to have at school. And it was either you know brown against white or white against brown, or the wetbacks against the white kids, or whatnot. And I'm not for or against this thing. I'm neutral here with this whole thing. I'm still trying to just gather all the information and figure out what this means for our community. But what I see is an overwhelming amount of fear. And that was the same thing that was going on, you know, back when I was a kid. And if anything, that scares me, to go back to that, to go back to ideas being filtered down to kids. And those ideas come from adults. They come from adults, and they come from both sides, right? Whether doesn't matter what color you are or where you grew up, or you know what nationality you are or what culture you are. Ideas have a very impactful effect on our minds and our psyches, on how we see the world and how we view other people. And I want to pose a question for because
You
I
have
see a
10
lot
seconds
of
to do it, so
anger.
just you have 10 seconds. So
I want to know how much of this has to do with the fact that people are brown or from the Middle East. If they were from Europe, if they were lighter skin, would that be an issue?
Ramon, great. Thank you so much.
you.
Now we have Dan Hargraves. Dan, are you here? And Mr. Hargraves, you're from Spring Valley, is that correct? Okay.
I used to live here years ago. I don't,
Okay.
but I have
Great.
people,
Thank you.
friends that live here now. But I think in this issue, as you realize what happened in New York, this could be something that would affect San Diego. Now, you say your family fled Europe, but during that time, the United States took in very few refugees from Nazi Germany, fascist Italy, or Japan. That's because we were at war with those countries. And we knew the governments would infiltrate spies or saboteurs. But we've always taken in refugees and immigrants throughout our history. And I think we can speak out and say this is not a wise idea without being saying that we are bigots, racist, this or that, or saying hateful things. Because I want to remind you, the first responsibility of government at any level is to protect their citizens. And if you can guarantee that all these refugees you take in will be fine, there would be no problem. But that's not the case. There's no way to vet them. And we know this. We know this, the countries in Europe that haven't attacked, England, France, and Germany, have a large population of Muslims. The ones that do not are not suffering any terrorist attacks. I don't understand why Imperial Beach would take this on. But I just have to say, you have to, we are at war with radical Muslims. They're a very small minority, but they will use it. They have said they will. So I'm just thinking, I don't know why Imperial Beach would consider this measure. You know, it just seems like maybe perhaps somewhere else, but.
Thank you, Mr. Hargraves.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much for coming from Spring Valley. That's it. Maybe I just wanted some clarification on proclamations because just first, I'm not really clear about what our role is in speaking and addressing because it's a public comment period. It's not agendized. So, City Attorney, would you like to comment on that? Or
Sure. So yes, public comment, if the item's not on the agenda, we can provide brief clarification. That's what the law allows us to do while it's not on the agenda. So to follow up on the brief comment made by the city manager at the last meeting, we just want to clarify that the proclamation was not voted on by the city council. It's not an official action of the city council. It's not a resolution. It's not an ordinance, and it's not binding on the city. So the effect of it is that it didn't create any new laws. It didn't create any obligations on behalf of the city.
excuse me, everyone's had an opportunity to speak. We're having clarification. Everyone's had an opportunity to speak. Is that it? Great. Were there any other comments? And just a comment for the record. Am I allowed to comment for the record?
Yeah, brief comments are okay. We just can't have a discussion
And just to be
about.
clear, this was placed on the agenda. It was on the agenda.
Right,
It was agendized. And how many, is that a week in advance?
Minimum of 72 hours.
72 hours. But it was placed, I think it was done a week in advance. Is that correct?
The Friday before the Wednesday meeting, the agendas are available.
Okay, that's fine. And then we on an average, we probably do 2 or 3 proclamations like every council meeting, right? And they're always placed on the agenda. So just to make sure I'm clear, proclamations have no policy implications. They don't make us required to do anything, and we have no immigration policy. We don't actually have any money. We don't do work with immigration groups. We don't do housing. We don't do that because we have no money to do that. Is that correct? Okay. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. It's a profoundly great moment for everybody. It's really important as Americans that we can express ourselves and we have a process. And I want to thank everybody for coming this evening. Great. Are there any other comments? Great. Now we have presentations on proclamations for the Tijuana River Action Month for October. Present proclamation to Chris Helmer, Assistant Public Works Director, and Mr. Helmer will make an announcement about the scheduled events that will take place during Tijuana River Action Month, and then we're going to have National Breast Cancer Awareness Proclamation Month, or National Breast Cancer Awareness Month Proclamation. Did you have your card here? You know, sir, I'm sorry. Everyone had an opportunity to speak.
I understand that, but you made a statement saying that this proclamation is
Sir,
not
sir,
binding.
sir,
This paragraph right here, it says that the city
sir,
is
sir,
required to
sir,
provide
everyone,
services.
we had 22 people spoke, I think. So everyone's had an opportunity to speak.
And I thought that's what we all came here for. Why we gotta drive miles and miles away and set up another meeting to come back again in the future?
Sir,
discuss this all over again.
everyone had an opportunity to speak. Everyone presented blue cards.
Got it.
Thank you.
Right here, the last paragraph. Everybody read that last paragraph. They said it didn't stop.
Sir.
talking about the last paragraph. It said that. Thank you. Have a safe evening here in Imperial Beach.
Mr. Helmer. Thank
Mayor
you.
and Council, good evening, you guys. This is another annual proclamation that we've done every year, and this is one that actually supports Tijuana River Action Month. It's a proclamation that this council does to support the efforts of nonprofit groups, agencies in the Tijuana River Valley, and the public that dedicated a substantial amount of time to clean up and to recover the Tijuana River Valley and the issues in the Tijuana River. So this proclamation is the 7th time that this city council has recognized the efforts of the work that goes on in Tijuana River Valley. And there's a whole list of activities, actually over 13 different activities that are occurring between the months of September and October in the Tijuana River Valley. And it's all available online. I'll make sure that Mr. Villa gets a poster that we have here that supports Tijuana River Action Month, and it will be posted and distributed through our social media account. And if you have any interest to really look at the specific activities, there's a whole lot of cleanups, stewardships, education outreach activities that go on, and it's all just to raise awareness and recognition of the work that needs to get done in the Tijuana River Valley and the work that is being done in the Tijuana River Valley. So with that, I'll pass this around for you just to see the poster. Thank you.
Did you want me to read the proclamation?
Sure, read the proclamation. Thank you.
Is that okay? The city is dedicated to improving the water quality and environmental habitat of the binational Tijuana River watershed. And the Tijuana River watershed provides important ecological and recreational resources in South San Diego County. And the health and well-being of the South Bay community is directly connected to the health of the Tijuana River watershed. And the month of October recognizes key efforts and investments by public and private agencies, nonprofits, and community groups to protect and restore the Tijuana River. Now, therefore, it be resolved that I, Serge Dedina, Mayor of the City of Imperial Beach, together with the City Council, do hereby recognize the month of October as Tijuana River Action Month. This is a non-binding, non-legal, non-policy proclamation. Now we have Breast Cancer Awareness Month proclamation, and Councilmember Bragg is going to read the proclamation, which is non-binding and it's not a policy.
Thank you. Before the meeting started, I had said I wanted to read this proclamation, and the mayor said he wanted to read this proclamation. So there was kind of
You got to do prostate cancer
I did,
awareness.
but I historically do the breast cancer awareness month. And one of the reasons why I asked to do it is very, very personal for me. My grandmother, my aunt, and one of my cousins passed away from breast cancer. So again, it's very near and dear to me. I take it very seriously and would like to read this proclamation. Again, it is non-binding. Proclamations are a big part of our city. And this one is just proclaiming that someday, and perhaps maybe not my lifetime, but maybe in my granddaughter's lifetime, there will be a cure for breast cancer. Whereas October 2016 is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and whereas October 21st, 2016 is National Mammography Day, and whereas breast cancer is the most common cancer among women except for skin cancer, whereas breast cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death in women after lung cancer. And when I read the proclamation for prostate cancer awareness, I asked all the men in the room to look at each other and to realize, I think at that statistic, that 1 in 7 of every man in the room would have prostate cancer. In this situation, it's 1 in 8. So as I look at faces out there of our females in the community, 1 in 8 of us will be diagnosed with breast cancer awareness. So now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Councilmember Lori Bragg, do proclaim the month of October 2016 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and October 21st as National Mammography Day. And if I could end with just a little funny story, very dear friend of mine, Tommy Schutte, and I always used to, October, we always went to get our screenings done, and we went up to Kaiser, and we went one day we went and we were told, oh, we're too busy, we can't see you. And we went the second day and, oh, we're too busy to see you. So the third time we went up there, Tommy and I threatened to sit there topless until they did give us our mammogram testing. And boy, we got seen that day. Fond memories of a wonderful lady. And ladies, please heed the advice. Get your screening done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, now we have consent.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I'd like to just draw a contrast between the resolutions that we've just read
Or proclamations.
proclamations, and the proclamation that that seems to have generated some controversy. I think it's instructive that proclamations that don't call for any particular action are of one kind. Proclamations that do in some way, even though they may not be binding, call for some sort of action or make it's a judgment call, but we do need to have, I think, a way to assess the implications of proclamations that call for action. Uh, two come into mind. One is the Rosarito, and the other one is the Open City, the recent one. Both of those
Welcoming city.
welcoming city. To the extent, and there may be others, but to the extent that a proclamation calls for action that could involve city activities that may cost staff time or commit the city to a certain amount of activity that wouldn't be there in the absence of the proclamation. I think we need to really consider how those are vetted. It's hard to know what's going to be controversial and what's not, but clearly when some sort of responsibility is implicit in the proclamation for further action or behavior change or asking staff to do A, B, or C, there is an implication there that warrants a different kind of review or thought process than a proclamation of like the two types that we just did today. So I just put that out there. I think we're all learning from the experience, and we need to have a process that makes those distinctions.
I have to agree with Mr. Spriggs. The only reason I opposed that other proclamation was the fact that I don't.
Oh, wait,
believe,
I'm sorry, you weren't at the meeting. when
I
we did
wasn't at the
proclamation.
meeting,
Just to
but
make sure
I
that's on the
made
public
sure
record.
I made sure to voice my opinion to Andy Hall. The fact is that I don't believe
Closed, wait, you did it in closed doors, is that correct?
behind closed doors.
Okay,
Yes,
not in public.
not in public.
You
but
weren't
the
here
fact,
for the meeting, you missed
Can I
the
speak,
meeting.
please? The fact is that partisan politics does not belong in these chambers. When we step into these chambers, our partisan affiliation goes completely out the door. And something as polarizing as this, and I am a grandchild of an immigrant, but when it's a federal partisan issue and something that has polarized our country so much should not be brought into these chambers.
But you could have attended the meeting to make that statement.
Well,
But you
Mr.
skipped
Dedina,
it.
unfortunately, I work for a living, so I had to stay late in order to
So you
pay
skipped the
bills.
meeting, so you could have made that statement. You could have asked for it to be pulled, but you skipped the meeting.
You could have understood what
Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. Everyone's had an opportunity, to speak.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to call for a 5-minute recess.
Sounds good.
You want to be rude? I will be rude. Your safety is at risk.
It's a public records request, yeah. No, you don't have to do it right now. Public records requests are 10 days. So it's, I mean, you're in the middle of a meeting right now, so it's up to you.
Readily available, it's a public document.
Didn't see him out there. Maybe in the restroom. You can take roll call vote just to.
Councilmember Bilbray. Here. Councilmember Patton.
Here.
Councilmember Bragg.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Spriggs.
Present.
Mayor Dedina.
Motion.
Oh, just one minute. Motion carried unanimously.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here again to talk to you a little bit about your investment report, and I also want to thank you for the kind words about breast cancer, because my family too has been affected by breast cancer. So, but let's talk about something different here. Let's talk about the economy, talk about the investment portfolio, and about what's going on around the world today as far as the economics are concerned. And so this first paragraph here on page 3 that we're talking about, just looking at what the Federal Reserve has done, basically scratch that whole paragraph because they had a meeting today. And what they bet on is about basically interest rates and what's going on with interest rates today. And so what did the Fed decide to do? Again, they decided to do nothing. And so, but one of the things I think that's very interesting about the Federal Reserve, they also had 3 dissenters. And so what the dissenters are saying basically is, hey, we'd like to increase interest rates, and actually we'd like to have done it this meeting, but we'll wait with you a little bit. Maybe we'll do it a little bit later on. Chances are when we'll see that is probably later on this year. Our view is that they will, there's a high likelihood that they will raise interest rates. They'll do that probably in December. And the reason I say that, there's a November meeting, but that's right before the election. The Fed traditionally stays away from that as far as raising rates. They've only done that really one time in the past, and that's when the elder Bush actually was running for president. They actually raised rates during that period of time. But our viewpoint is that they're going to basically stay away from that at this point, let the election go through, and then make their decision at that point. The economy still continues to do very well. The jobs continue to come in pretty good. We have had a little bit of a lackluster manufacturing data recently, but remember, that's only a month's worth of data, and that doesn't necessarily make a trend. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Looking at the employment situation here, so we're looking at non-farm payrolls in that first graph, and you can see that was up 151,000 versus 180,000. Also, the previous 2 months were well above expectations, above that 200,000 mark. Remember, the Fed's on record recently saying that it only needs about 100,000 job creation in order to keep the unemployment rate where it is today. The unemployment rate remains below 5%, as you can see in that other graph there. Remember that bottom line there, or that dark green line there, is really the headline unemployment rate that we read in the paper. And that green line there is talking about the underemployed, those that are marginally attached from the workforce, maybe someone that wants to be working full-time but is only working part-time. That's around a little bit below 10% there. So the labor market continues to tell the Fed, hey, there's a green light as far as if you'd like to go as far as interest rates. But on the flip side of the equation, they also have an inflation target, and their inflation target is about 2%. And so most of us look at the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index. So if you look at that darker green line, really that's headline number there, you're looking at around 1% on a year-over-year basis, heading down a little bit. But if you take food and energy out of that, you're looking at the core, and the core is definitely above that 2%. But if you think about the Fed's kind of a different entity. You and I would probably look at the CPI. They look at the PCE, which is a personal consumption indicators. And what you can have there is you can see that that green line is a little bit below that 1%, but of course they look at core, which takes out food and energy, which they believe are volatile components. And you can see that that is hovering around 1.5%. Remember, the Fed's target is 2%, but they've said in the past it doesn't have to reach 2% in order for them to raise rates. It just has to be trending in that right direction. Looking at the consumer on a year-over-year basis, retail sales, you can see here around 2%. Retail sales have been a little bit sluggish recently, but also there's the expectation that in the second half of the year that the economy is going to pick up. In fact, there's a lot of readings out there today. They were talking about maybe 3% as far as the third quarter, and we'll have to look at what the fourth quarter. So we're definitely thinking that it's going to increase over that period of time. You can see also consumer confidence is also increasing. You can see it's above that 100 mark. That's really indicative of kind of moderate growth that we have today. The consumer really, as far as confidence, they're really looking at the jobs picture. Usually when you see better jobs picture, you see higher confidence. Also gas prices tend to help the consumer as far as looking at the overall confidence there. Looking at the economic activity, looking what's leading the economy. So the first one is month-over-month changes and leading economic indicators. What you really want to look at there, if you see -2, maybe 3 months in a row, typically after we see that, that starts to turn positive. And so what that really tells me is that there's going to be moderate growth moving forward. Also, we're seeing the Chicago Fed National Activity Index. This is the 0.7. Anything above 0.7 is really an economy that's continuing to grow and maybe getting inflationary. Minus 0.7 is the economy is growing very slowly, actually maybe in recession. And actually, we're kind of towards that middle end there, and the trend is looking up there at the same time. So I think we're looking at moderate growth. I think probably if you look at 2016, how we're going to finish as far as GDP, probably looking at about 2%. The forecasts are about 2 to 2.5%. Please shade that to the lower side of the equation, given the economic numbers that we've had recently. Then looking at housing, housing continues to do pretty well. So you can look up there and you can see housing starts, and you can see that dark green line is that of single family homes. That lighter green line is that of multifamily homes. And you can see we're at those somewhat higher end of the ranges over the last 2 years. And so housing, we can continue to see that. I can see even in your own city that you're seeing some housing starts and things like that, and construction going on. So again, those are some of those numbers that are indicative. And then we have the Case-Shiller housing price index. So that's 20 city composite. That includes housing in Southern California and also across the nation. If you look on a year-over-year basis, you're looking at about 4%. One of the interesting things, if you ever look in Colorado recently, houses up there are almost up about 10% on a year-over-year basis. A lot of people are saying maybe that's because of the legalization of marijuana. That's not necessarily the case. We do some business in Colorado, and definitely things are going very well there. So we can see that activity as far as just overall economic activities. Here's what I've been told by a city manager there. They say it's not insignificant, but if it went away, it wouldn't cause them any problems either as far as funding themselves. So, it has been okay for them, but definitely it's something that can be a coin toss. In looking at manufacturing, so what we have here is the ISM index. Anything above 50 is expanding, anything below 50 is contracting. Been coming down recently, so we're starting to test some of those lows. But again, some of the numbers we've been seeing recently, we probably will see some sort of inventory build come in the second half of the year. That's going to help that manufacturing numbers. And then you can see capacity utilization coming off of those lows that we've seen over the last 2 years and starting to tick up there a little bit. So manufacturing, still a little bit sluggish right now, but definitely we think that it's going to improve moving forward. Then you can see GDP here. So remember, this is all the goods and services produced in the United States. And I'm going to point to that table in that far column over there for June 2016, which was the second half. You can see I break that into the different components there. I'm not going to go over those today, but about 1.1% is what we saw in the second half. The graph on the other side, the bar graph there, which is the dark green lines, those are the quarter-over-quarter changes. And then that lighter green graph is that year-over-year change. And so you can see we're just about at 1% on a year-over-year change. So we definitely have seen a slowdown on a year-over-year basis. But I think with some of the improvement that we'll see in the second half, that number is going to start to tick up a little bit higher moving forward. Then you can see what's happened to bond yields. And so I think since the last time I talked to you, one of these great things has happened. It's called the Brexit. So what happened at the Brexit? That was back in June. I think that was splashed all over the newspapers that the UK was leaving the EU through a vote. And so what's happened since that vote? Absolutely nothing. because what has to happen is they have to invoke Article 50. And so the Parliament there has to invoke Article 50. That has not been done yet. Chances are that's not going to happen until maybe the first part of next year. And if you ask me today what's going to happen as far as it relates to Brexit, I would say I don't know. And the reason being is there's so many intricacies there as far as trade agreements and things like that. Also, proximity of Britain versus the EU. They're still going to be an important trading partners of one another. And so I think the story is still going to be written there. And I think the interesting thing there is the Prime Minister there, she was basically for Remain, basically to stay in the Brexit. Now she's going to write the story of them exiting the Brexit. So really the irony there as far as pretty interesting there. What you can see with rates is we really saw them come down in June. And then what you can see is they've started to come back up there. That's when the financial markets had a lot of volatility. What I really want you to take away from there is on the other graph. So that really is looking at the term structure of interest rates. That bottom line there is really the terms of those interest of the bonds or U.S. Treasury bonds, and then the yields associated with those. You can see that lighter green graph there was about a year ago. That was August 2015, and that brown line there is August 2016. Flattening of the yield curve. Longer term rates have come down. Shorter term rates are coming up. Really what's caused that? The Federal Reserve actually moving in interest rates back in December 2015, and at least indicating maybe that it wants to move a little bit more, driving some of those shorter term rates higher. And then on a long term basis, really inflation rates not doing too much. So that's really what's driving some of those rates down. Also remember, we have two central banks in the world today that are practicing negative interest rate policies, the Bank of Japan and also the European Central Bank. And so that also is driving capital to the United States. That's putting a cap on some of our interest rates. Then moving forward, looking at the account profile, your portfolio, what's your primary tenets? Safety, liquidity, and then finally yield or return. The benchmark there is the 1 to 3 or U.S. Treasury, and then we really purchase securities that invest in high quality instruments that conform with your investment policy and also California state code. You can see that your portfolio fully complies with your investment policy. And then looking at the account profile on page 15 there. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of these measures here versus that of your benchmark. I'm going to focus in on August 31st. And so what you can see here is the average maturity is about 1.81 of 84 of the benchmark, 1.91 for the actual portfolio. The duration, remember duration is your portfolio sensitivity to interest rate. The higher that number, the more sensitive. The lower that number, the less sensitive. Your portfolio today has a duration of 1.72 versus the benchmark of 1.80. Average purchase yield, that's the yield to maturity on your portfolio, is 1.22%. Think about one of your alternatives today is the state-run local agency investment pool. About 60 basis points today is what that's earning. So really by having that longer-term strategy, you basically have doubled your earnings on a relative basis. You can see the market yield is 1.13. That's a AA rated portfolio, and the portfolio has increased in value from $23.9 million to about $24 million over that period of time. So increasing. One of the things I think you should also remember those dates are May 31st through August 31st. And so we had the Brexit, all that volatility that took place in the financial market. What happened to your portfolio? Increased in value. So even when you have times of volatility, your portfolio, the assets that you have are such high quality that those are really demanded by investors in times of volatility. Then looking at your portfolio, looking at the sector distribution. So you can see here treasuries are about 16.7%. Corporates are 27.7%. The money market fund is 4.2% there. We've invested those funds now since this reading. And then you can see the asset-backed securities are 8.2% and agencies are 43.2%. Then you can see the different issuers here. Not going to go into all of this. One of the things I just want you to take away from is the majority of your investments are really in U.S. agency securities or direct obligations of the U.S. Treasury. And where you do have corporate securities, you also have a lot of diversification there, not only amongst issuers, but also industries. And then looking at quality distribution, all your securities are rated A or better. Those that are not rated securities are rated by either Moody's or Fitch. This happens to be the S&P rating scale. And then you can see what's going on as far as the term structure, the duration. Think of these as maturities. And your portfolio there as of 8/31 is in the green, and as of 5/31 in the tan there. You can see there's a little bit of liquidity that's been built up in the very front end that has since been spent down and put out further into the yield curve to get those higher earnings for the city. And then you can see my performance or my report card to you. You can see your portfolio in the green in the bars up there, and then the benchmark. And I'm going to go over the table below here. So your portfolio over the last 3 months earned 35 basis points versus the benchmark of 0.37. You can see over the last 12 months, 1.39% versus 1.07. It's going to skip over here to 3 years, 1.16 versus 0.88. and since inception 1.06 versus 0.83, and then since inception date there is July 31st, 2013. And then I can answer any questions you may have on the individual holdings.
Thank you so much for that illuminating
right.
discussion. Might be the only time we've had the mention of the sale of marijuana as somehow related tangentially to our own financial stability. That might be happening more in the future, though. Mr. Spriggs.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
I see that you have gone a little bit more to agency for return, I think.
Yes.
Which is it's good to see that your returns are outpacing the benchmark.
Mhm.
That's very commendable. Whole city appreciates that. Even though we talk about practice.
Yeah.
It could be percentage points, now it's practice. Percentage points. I really, I have no issues with the report, but I do wonder about the in our administrative director and thank you, and our financial person Doug Bradford may have something to say about this as well. I've really been concerned about our own budget process and our long range projections in terms of how the economy is doing, what our visitor serving tourism based economy can expect going forward, et cetera. So your report, as far as the economic analysis, goes from the macro and then we go right into how the portfolio has performed.
Right.
There's no real focus on California or Southern California or any indicators having to do with what makes our economy tick.
Mhm.
The visitor serving aspects of the economy, et cetera. Is there any way that when we do these reports twice a year, we could maybe get a little bit more of that sort of information included in your presentation, or maybe Mr. Bradford has another way that we could glean this information, because you guys have all this access to a great database
Mhm.
of information, but it is really U.S. and global.
Mhm.
And for us in Southern California, or even just California, it's, there may be a whole different performance that's going on here compared to in those places, whether it's housing market, labor market, what have you.
Yeah.
So that's my question to you.
So I think that we can provide you maybe a snapshot of some major indicators that are out there. We can definitely give you an unemployment read on what's going on in California. We can also give you an inflation read as far as what's going on in Southern California's inflation, and also maybe even some unemployment data as far as Southern California in general. So yes, some of that data is available. You may also be interested in, I think it's a professor from USD. His name is Professor Jen, I think is his name. He does something, what he does is leading economic indicators for San Diego. And so we have some information that we can probably provide on that. And definitely we can do that. One of the things the reason why our presentation is put together that way is because if we think about overall interest rates in the United States, it's really predicated on national levels, not necessarily individual, locations or regions. But definitely we can add that and put some more information that would be pertinent just to the citizens of Imperial Beach, so that you can see some of that, and maybe California also.
I'll just add that in conjunction with what he's offered there, as part of our budgeting process, which we're going to begin here in November or December for our 2-year budget cycle. I was going to incorporate some of the more longer term forecasting and strategies. So I'll look at some of that information and try to incorporate it into the budgeting process as we go forward here.
Probably maybe Doug and I can work together and get you some more information on that, because we have some information and we have some resources to look for that.
Great. Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patton.
Thanks for the report. Quick. Always look forward to it because I learned so much from you. What's happening globally as well as nationally. Just a real quick question is, how much better off are we, Imperial Beach, today than we were a year ago? Was there a slide for that?
If you're better off, there's not a slide for that. But as far as the returns, you're much better off than you were a year ago. And I think I would add one caveat to that. You're better off than some of your better alternatives also. remember, if you think about your investable universe, if you think about the investable universe of CalPERS, the pension program, invest in stocks, bonds, anything that it kind of wants to do so. Yours is so confined, fixed income investments, A or better. And so if you look at that, you're doing very well. Also, if I look at your peer group, if I looked at you versus other local agencies and things like that, you're also doing very well versus that at the same time. Although my peer group may be a little bit slanted in the sense it's all portfolios that we manage. But if we go and look at some of the people that we presented to over time, your portfolio is doing very well relative to that at the same time. And also one of those benchmarks that you can always look at your portfolio is that you could always put your money in lake at the end of the day. That's a state-run pool. That's a very short-term investment. And today they're earning about 60 basis points versus 1.22% that you're earning today. So yes, the citizens of Imperial Beach are better off because the city has invoked that longer-term investment strategy. And that's the biggest thing. You have a policy and you have a strategy that you're following on a continual basis. And if you ask any expert, they will tell you what's the best thing that you can possibly have is a strategy for your investment and continue to follow that strategy over time.
Right, along with Mr. Bradley and the
Yeah.
rest of us, we do have a great strategy.
Yeah.
And that's the answer I wanted to hear. Thank you.
All right.
Great, thank you. I think that's, any more questions?
One more.
Thanks again. So with this heavily bond-oriented required investment strategy, what's likely to happen to us, say, versus CalPERS, as you compared us to previously, which is more into stocks and other investments as well? If we have what many people predict to be a kind of a major correction in the markets, say a 5 or 10% drop in the stock market, et cetera, what would be your prediction as to what would happen with our portfolio?
Well, I would come to you with a beaming face because what would happen is your investments would go up at that period of time. Because if you think about it, the corporate securities that you have might be hurt a little bit, but you own the large corporations, the corporations that have really been able to maintain their credit ratings even through down cycles. And then the other aspect that you own is government securities. And we all know what happened in 2008. Treasury securities were like gold versus if you wanted to go buy a gold stock, it probably wasn't doing as very well because the stock market was going down. And so I think what you would see there is I would say that the city of Imperial Beach's citizens are better off than those playing in the rest of the market today. One of the interesting things this year is that from fiscal year 6/30/2015 to 6/30/2016, your return in your portfolio actually beat CalPERS. So CalPERS was up 61 basis points. I know that your portfolio was north of about 1% over that period of time. And so just an interesting anecdote. I don't expect that over the long term because we typically know that stocks will outperform bonds. But you will perform very well your portfolio in an adverse environment. And of course, what does that go by? One of your primary tenets, safety, liquidity. And we need to have both of those in that portfolio, regardless of what the environment is. And that's why sometimes we get asked, why do you own U.S. Treasuries? You can own more corporate securities. You can own some of this. Well, what do Treasury securities give you? The ultimate safety and also liquidity. During the credit crisis, if you needed funds out of this portfolio, we could have sold those Treasuries overnight and had you those funds.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation.
Great. Thank you.
Now we have item that's near and dear to our hearts, 5.2 FY 2016 and FY 2017 CIP 2-year implementation plan report. And Public Works Director, Mr. Hank Levine, will give a report on the item. And I understand we have a video. Is that correct? Okay.
Mayor and Council, I'm going to ask Ed to go ahead and start the video. It's just the video is some shots of the projects that have been completed in the city consistent with the 2-year implementation plan. So go ahead and start it. As you know, you approved for Public Works capital projects in the 2-year budget was 20 separate different projects. There were other projects that were in the list, but they were not ones that I was running as part of my capital program. And then there were 7 sewer projects that were in addition to the other 20. So 27 projects you'd given us to do. And then during the course of this last year, there were 5 others that were added to the list, as you see in your report. And 2 of those have been completed, and 9 of the original 20 have been completed. And it's my expectation that we should be able to complete or be under construction with the remainder of those, with the exception of the 2 that I noted in the staff report, that we're changing the scope of work due to conditions that we found after we got started with the capital program. And those are also in your report. With that broad overview, I'm going to be just available for questions. I think that's the easiest way for you to understand what we're doing. There are some other projects that we've been doing which are not added, were not officially added to the capital program through resolutions, but so they're not in this list. So with that, I'm going to let you look at the video. It's about covers the projects, and I think it probably another 6 minutes or so to go through the rest of those projects.
I admit, Hank, we speeded up your video.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to just walk us through when we see the pictures?
Sure. This is Delaware. This was widening the sidewalk from where there was none to an 8-foot wide sidewalk from Elm to the alley adjacent to the new shopping center. You're looking here at the installation of ADA ramps at the corner of Iris and 13th by the NOLF. This is a video of the storm drains that were, not storm drains, the sewer lines that were replaced or repaired in the alley project. And you can see that there's quite a few damaged areas with lots of roots and nice stuff to impact flow. That's all completed. This is the 13th Street Class 2 Bikeway project. This is showing it the final striping. And we added there at Grove Avenue the crosswalks of the signal lights. There was a project that widened the location or removed some of the chain link fence along Bayshore Bikeway, and you can see it's a substantial change in view. This is a pump station that you heard me talk to you and came back to you a couple times on. We had a lot of problems with this one. It's pump station 10. This was a condition of the sewer main that we came back to you and said, we have an emergency. We need to get this thing fixed before we can actually get into the pump station itself. This is the bypass operation of pump station 10 as we were doing the work inside. This project, you may remember, was basically relining or lining the walls of the wet well. There are 2 wet wells in this station, and they are conjoined by a hole goes between the 2 of them to be able to communicate back and forth. This is a very old pump station, and the walls were starting to weep and thin, and they needed to be restored so that we could extend the life of this station hopefully another 30 to 50 years. These is inside the station. You can see the station is very confined. That's the control panel, electronics to operate the system. And this is kind of the last bit of it. The guys came in after it was all done and repainted it. And we'll be working on removing and replacing the chain link fence with a rail fence similar to what you see on Pump Station 9 off of 9th Street.
I think we're going through it second time, right?
This goes through the second. I don't know if you want to look at that or
think we're
not.
fine.
You already probably seen it.
Yeah.
Okay. So just ask him to put up the attachment you have on your staff report. So if there's questions on that, this is the projects that you assigned in the 2-year implementation plan. The yellow highlight is to represent the projects that are completed. And then in that same column, I'm trying to explain briefly a status of those projects as they exist today. And in some cases on the right, comments to embellish the status. I'm open for questions and comments.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you. I really enjoyed that slide presentation. I love seeing the broken pipes. That was great. It's really important to see that stuff. So you really get
It
understanding that
is.
it really is
It's-
broken. Yeah.
So, thank you.
And that there are no aliens living down there. So, Mr. Patton. Yeah, we couldn't see any. Anyway.
Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Levine. Elm Street, can you give a quick update on Elm Street? That seems
Sure.
to be one of the big projects going on in town.
Yeah, we're working hard. I shouldn't say we, the contractor's working hard to try to get the concrete paving in front of the high school, the main building and the frontage pretty much in before they open up. They may not get quite there. We run into some significant unforeseen circumstances in situations in front of the high school. There were sewer laterals that came out of the high school that nobody knew were there. And so we've had a lot of redesign, if you will, and adjustments in order to make those flow properly. We found some abandoned lines, both gas lines, electric, and nobody knew was there. So when you hit a conduit and it's not identified, you kind of have to stop and get all the utilities out there and they scratch their head to figure out, is it mine? Is it active? So in front of the high school, we've had a lot of interferences and unforeseen circumstances. So that's delayed us some. Although the contractor yet is not saying that they can't complete by the end of December, and that's still our goal. There's a new fence going to go up along the Bayside, South Bay Union School District. You've seen probably the fence removed there in front of the school, and there's some temporary fencing up along Connecticut. The posts are mostly in now for the new fence. The way this company installs those, they actually put the posts in and then they come in and measure the distance between each post because they, I guess, aren't comfortable. They get every pole exactly the same distance. So each panel is unique. So those have all been measured and now they're in to be manufactured and coated so that they'll hopefully last a long time. We had some storm drain issues, again, because of the unforeseen circumstances. We've had to adjust SDG&E and AT&T have had main lines or their conduits or they didn't have them exactly identified in terms of depth, and so we've had to have them out and adjust the level of those lines come through. The same thing with Cal-Am Water. We've had to have some adjustments to that. So there's been a lot of work trying to resolve each of those issues as we come through it. But again, we're hopeful the contractor can get done. They did have a little delay. If you were there, Councilmember Patton, when the fire hydrant got hit and decided to flood out the site. It took a couple weeks. You didn't
get wet? Were you in your surf trunks?
It was the open house for the school.
So it took a couple weeks to get that soil dried out so they could continue work.
Yeah, what I'm noticing is the workers there, that whole area is like as they work, they're cleaning it up. It's becoming more and more passable, and it's looking good. I know I didn't realize he had all those roadblocks and difficulties. One thing I think we did initially, we said we were going to notify the residents, the near residents, kind of give them every now and then, a little update on what's going on. And if we haven't done that recently, I think we should probably even a quick mailer to
Okay.
the media, just, let them know, hey, this is where we're at.
That's a good
Things
idea.
are going okay. And, we're still on time as far as we know. And I think
Yeah.
that might just, instead of just wondering.
We have been putting up the 3-week look ahead on the webpage, but that probably is, it's written in kind of construction language, so a layperson might have trouble understanding what they're trying to do.
Something easy.
So,
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
No questions this time, amazingly enough. But I did want to say, looking at this project list and all the progress that you've made and just looking at our community physically, you've done a great job, Hank, you and your team, to keep IB moving forward with great streets, alleys, everything. Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Levine, for providing this list for us. And as my colleagues and people in the audience can see, this was a pretty aggressive CIP list that you were able to accomplish. Almost half of it is amazing. And what was equally amazing is, like you were saying, there were challenges every step of the way. Some of them much more strenuous than others. This represents, just like the presentation before, that was all about investments. And so is this. These are investments in our community that have impacts, whether they're big or small, on every resident. And they're varied, which is, to me, pleasing, because it shows that we're really concentrating on all aspects and all areas of the community. It's not just condensed into one. Some of the ones that are I don't want to say near and dear to me, but I think most important, because when they go bad, it goes really bad. And that's obviously anything that has to do with our sewer system. And we have seen now that, and it is an aging system. So we always have to be mindful of that. And there's still other ones to be completed. I think in the future, what would be helpful for me is if, and I know it's hard to predict, Mr. Levine, but any kind, and you've done that on some of these, but estimated completion dates would be really helpful. And Mr. Patton, I really love your suggestion of sending a notice out to the citizens directly affected, because as a council person, that's what I hear all the time is what's going on with that project, or what's going on with that project, or what happened there, or what didn't happen there. So if we can let people know, as we've seen tonight, that communication is key to everything. I expect that tomorrow night at the open house meeting, that your table will be extremely popular because you have a lot of projects. But I'd like to add my thanks, Mr. Levine, to what you've accomplished in this CIP budget cycle. Thank you.
Sure. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Councilmember Bragg. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Levine. And I just have a question. We approved, if I'm correct, we approved more alley projects on the north side of Palm. Is that correct?
Yes, it's on your list, but it's
Right.
not, it's.
No, I
we've
know
got
that,
it
but
here,
did-
and it's on the added list. It is.
Are we including we've gotten lots and lots of complaints from residents about that alley by the 7-Eleven on IB Boulevard on 13th on the.
It is there.
Good,
Is-
okay.
Is one of the, it's one of the 8 lists. Actually, I'm calling it the 8 alley project. And you said, the council gave me direction to add a 9th alley.
Right.
That's not it, but you'll be seeing a bid for 8 alleys plus an additive for the 9th. And if it's in the budget and you choose to, we'll do the 9th alley. So it's being designed, but that is an alley that's in the first 8. It's not a choice.
I know we're just talking right now, but it'd be great to get that one done first. I've heard nothing but complaints from residents for the last 2 years, and we just had recent complaints in a meeting with a resident who was just very concerned about the lack of the plethora of dirt in that alley. So how it's unsafe it is. So.
It is probably the biggest challenge because of the dirt mounds on either side. You're going down a ditch almost,
okay.
right? Because you've got the high walls on either side, and the house is very, very close. The one on the south side,
Right.
southeast side of the alley. It's only about 3 feet from the edge of the street.
Okay.
So trying to put that alley in there and not risk any damage to that house is a huge concern of mine.
Well, the fact that you use the word ditch and mounds to describe what should be a thoroughfare in the city only makes me realize I know you're up to the challenge. So thank you very much. Again, your staff, you and your staff are absolutely amazing. And I look at the contractors working, and just, it's great to see guys out on the street actually making our city better, which is why for everybody, and I know our council enthusiastically supports Measure A, which is the initiative on the ballot in November to provide monies to invest in infrastructure and transportation infrastructure in San Diego County. And that's money that will go right into fixing our potholes and our mountains and our ditches in Imperial Beach. So anyway, thank you so much for that great approach. I love the visuals. I think it's a great format for the future, especially when I see you can really see the broken pipes and the potential aliens in those,
Thanks
pipes.
goes to my staff because I did not do any
No,
part of it.
it's really important to do that. All right. With that, we'll move on. We didn't have to. Good. Appreciate the report. And now we have 5.3, City Council discussion of policy-related issues authorized to be placed on the agenda at the September 7th, 2016 City Council meeting. Mr. Hall will give the report on the item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have had an opportunity to meet with Councilman Bilbray and get his input on the items that are placed on the agenda tonight. And the way we placed it on the agenda, and it might be the easiest way to discuss them, is we've placed them essentially, even though they're the same agenda item, we've separated those into the 5 different areas. So I can do this however you want. I could shoot through all of these suggestions, or I could do them one at a time. It might be easier to do them one at a time because they are somewhat independent. So I'll just start with the first one, which was the section 2.08.030 of our municipal code talks about the mayor's duties. And what we're talking about here are council assignments and how those council assignments are disseminated amongst the city council members. And our code right now reads that it is the mayor's duty to represent the city in all regional public agencies which require an elected official unless otherwise determined by the city council. So essentially what happens is the mayor will serve on all the regional boards unless the council decides otherwise. And the way we've done that in the past is that the mayor has prepared a recommendation brought to the city council. The city council has deliberated and either approved that recommendation or they have changed the recommendation and move forward from there. What Councilman Bilbray is suggesting is that perhaps the mayor and a council member ranked by seniority, if 2 council members elected at the same time, the member who obtained the highest vote total, shall meet and jointly prepare a recommendation for consideration by the city council. So that's one recommendation or suggestion that he would have on how we make council assignments. The second being that the city council assignments be for a 2-year period rather than annually. So he is making those suggestions. Again, I don't mean to speak for Councilman Bilbray, but I typically staff gives a staff report, so we're doing that. So if that's a fair representation, then we can get any input that we might have from council members.
With everybody talking about transparency and trying to open up government, a former mayor used to have at least one other council member make the recommendations and actually come forward to the council in order to make the recommendations to the entire board. The mayor didn't do it himself. He actually had somebody else do it. And with going through and potentially redoing council assignments every year, I believe it could be very detrimental to the city in general, especially with like Councilmember Bragg sits on MTS and was elected to the executive board, I believe. And without her seniority on that board, she would have never been able to have that chance. So just for consideration, I'd like to hear back from fellow members.
And just for clarification, should the city council want to either implement these or other changes to that, this is part of the municipal code. So it would require an ordinance change, which means we would bring back language as directed by the council to a first reading, second reading, adoption, 30-day notice.
So just want to make sure everyone's aware, this is an ordinance that would need to be changed.
I guess my only question is on assignments shall be for a 2-year period. Is that a minimum? I mean, because I know like Mrs. Bragg and Mr. Spriggs, and you've been on things for a while, and I think being there for 2 years or even more is a good thing for continuity. If that fits into the whole assignment. Is it a minimum or is it a 2-year you're out?
No, minimum.
Oh, minimum. Okay, so we probably need to add
Just so
that.
that it's not happening every year.
Oh, okay.
Like we-
I can just shed a little bit of light on that, and that, as Councilmember Patton stated, at MTS, you have to have served on the regular board for a minimum number of years before you can go to the executive board. And I think it's in the hopes that during your tenure there, you're going to learn, how these funds are being applied. So I do agree with us having a 2-year, well, especially a 2-year minimum on these assignments. And that's one of the reasons why if you had a different person every year at MTS, Imperial Beach would never have representation on the executive committee. And because of that representation, we have seen great changes on the blue line specifically. And I do like the idea of having a senior council member confer with the mayor on these assignments. And one of the reasons why is some of these regional committees and boards and commissions that we're asked to serve on, let's face it, my first year in office, did I know what the R tip was? Did I know what the S tip was? Did I know that even Imperial Beach could even apply that money? No, very honestly, no. It takes a while before you understand your city government and how it works, before you can even serve effectively on another regional board. So these are some considerations that I would hope, and I believe that in the past they have served us well. I do like the idea of a, a 2-man committee, if you will, make those decisions. Thank you.
I think I support, well, I don't think, I support this change as well. I think the idea of having a senior council member working with the mayor on this is a good idea. That way, 2 heads are better than 1. And, quite frankly, some of our more contentious meetings have involved assignments, let's face it. And we need to really figure out, and I'm hopeful that this will reduce some of that anxiety and tension and competition. It's one of those processes that kind of, where I have mixed feelings about the effect of the Brown Act, because you can't really have discussions amongst the council members to kind of sort things out, and then you have a discussion in public about what the results are and what the considerations are, et cetera. So all this has to sort of happen here on the dais. And every time in the 6 years that I've been on the council, every time we've gone through this, it's been a little bit different, but it's always been with more tension between council members than just about any other issue. And so I really, I support the change. I think it's, if anything, it'll improve things. And that's the #1 reason why I support the change. Thanks.
Then without differing input or dissent, we will prepare language for consideration by the council. Yeah.
Tonight's not final action on this, so it looks, right, it looks like there's at least 4 council members that are directing to draft the ordinance change.
Then we'll bring it forward for review by the council. The next item is, I'll move through it really quickly. It's fairly simple.
right now, our travel policy on the city council, there are 3 times when the city council needs to approve travel by council members. One is international travel, except Northern Baja. One are expenses which exceed the annual limits established for each office holder. And third, expenses exceeding $1,500 per trip. The suggestion by Councilman Bilbray, which I believe, again, he is referring to transparency, that prior to any travel by the city council, we stick it on the consent agenda of the previous meeting if at all possible. If it's emergency travel, which happens sometimes, you got to go to Sacramento or something to appear before the legislature or something, and we don't have time to put it on the agenda, we put it on the next agenda. So again, I think the request or the suggestion is that we put travel requests on the consent agenda.
If I may. I can support this change in the light of transparency and authenticity. And in years past, and it wasn't anybody on this council or a very recent council, took a trip and it was a conference, they were going to a conference, and they were leaving office very shortly after that conference. And I just couldn't support that. So I think that by having these on an agenda item, and everybody in the public, council members know, hey, so-and-so's taking a trip and here's why. So for those reasons, I can support this change.
So just for clarification, I assume that the criteria that are already there stay the same, and this is just going to put the travel information on a consent calendar, but not change anything else. Right. Okay, I support it.
The next item is the creation of a planning commission. Councilman Bilbray would like to reinstate the planning commission and restore the roles and responsibilities of the planning commission. On May 6th of 2015, the city council reviewed a similar request and chose not to reinstate the planning commission. And Councilman Bilbray is requesting once again to reinstate the planning commission.
This issue, I mean, we're always I'm always hearing about how quickly everything's moving. It's a way of actually slowing the developments down in Imperial Beach a little bit. I'm also not a big fan of the fact that the same members of the board act as both planning commission and council. So there's not really any checks and balances there. So I personally, I would prefer a separate board. There's also an option of combining the planning commission and the design review board in order for just have a separate board or body in order to reestablish due process.
I have a little bit of a different view on this one. When I saw this item on the agenda, I went back and looked at the minutes from the meeting where we voted this idea down last year. And literally 4 members of the council, this same council, made statements that suggested very strongly that they didn't think this was a good idea. And the vote ended up 3-2. But nevertheless, and I have the minutes here, I mean, I could read these comments and remind everyone of what we said before if we need to revisit, you know, our deliberation, which was a long deliberation. It was a deliberation that involved every single council member saying their piece fully, a couple of us twice, as a matter of fact, and then we took a vote. And I really don't think, and we could go through a discussion tonight about all the pros and cons of a planning commission versus the DRB, et cetera. And in fact, there's an item coming up. One of Councilmember Bilbray's suggestions is to strengthen the membership of the Design Review Board, which is coming up next, I believe. I would rather focus on that, which is a new idea and to me, a positive idea rather than revisit, the planning commission. So my view is we shouldn't proceed with this one because we've already acted on it, this very same body.
Thank you. I was one of the 2 people who voted for a planning commission. However, at this time, I cannot support this change. And when I say at this time, I mean there is an election coming up, and theoretically, we could have 2 new council members. I hope that's not true. I hope we only have 1 new council member. But it almost feels as if I'm tying the hands of new council members, and I would like them to be able to weigh in on this decision. I would like to defer this to a later date.
Thank you. Any more? Mr. Patton.
I think if I'm reading that right, it would be to take the current duties and roles of the design review board and perhaps either add members to the design review board or at least change the roles and responsibilities so that the design review board would function both as the design review board and the planning commission is my understanding. And so we would go back to the roles of the planning commission that we have in our municipal code, and we would transfer those roles. Probably the biggest change, in reality, the biggest change would be that conditional use permits, which tend to be probably the most controversial land use approvals granted by the city council, those would then be transferred to the design review board and planning commission. And so that would probably be the biggest change, if that's fair to say. But it's my understanding that perhaps expanding the size and the role of the DRB is what Councilman Bilbray is suggesting. But he took a dive.
The conditional use permits, are you saying that planning commission and design review, they would have the ultimate say so, yes or no, and not us?
That's correct. That's state statute. That's one of the roles of a planning commission is to approve conditional use permits.
And what extra resources, costs are included on something like this?
If we were to create a separate planning commission, it would be an impact because we would have another board of commission that we would be preparing for meetings. We'd have another group of night meetings, publications, staff reports. So there would be an impact. As far as expanding the role of the design review board, that would be an adjustment. I think that would be sending different items to the DRB than what they currently see. But I don't know that it would be more work. It would just shift some of the responsibilities from the council to the design review board.
Now, why would planning commission get those conditional use? Why?
When
100%.
State statute actually sets up some of the roles in state statute, sets up the role of the planning commission. Unlike your other boards, which you guys can essentially determine what role they play, in state statute, it's very clear what role the planning commission plays, and they have some very specific roles. And that's one role that the planning commission plays.
Thank you.
The last motion we have on record is that we would not create a planning commission. So barring a majority vote to go the other way, we would continue with that. The next item is the stipulations on the membership for the design review board and the planning commission, if reinstated. And since that did not move forward, we would look at the design review board. And what Councilman Bilbray is suggesting was that he would like to reinstate some of the criteria for the selection of future members of the DRB. In the past, there was an ordinance passed in 1991 that said that members of the DRB should have experience or education in construction and construction financing, and one member should have education in architecture or landscape architecture. And the suggestion of Councilman Bilbray is that we reinstate those criteria. And at the very least, when the mayor is interviewing and bringing forward recommendations to the city council for approval.
You mean the city council?
No, this would be the way that these boards are, it would be a recommendation from the mayor.
When we did the interviews, we did a city council committee.
Yeah,
okay.
That's the way you set it up. But yeah, however the mayor would choose to select those people.
that there would be some preference or priority given to someone who might have an architectural background or a construction background, just to add to the skill set of the design review board.
And just to add on to that, the reasoning behind this is that when these committees were formed, these were the two committees that were supposed to have the expertise that the council didn't necessarily have. And so it's just trying to fill a niche that, you know, I mean, I'm not an engineer or developer, so, but just for future items that, yeah.
Right, he's
I
saying
mean, it
as they
should,
get replaced in the
as they
future.
get replaced, there should be at least some type of criteria of how, with the pick process.
Or preference given or something.
So let's see how this would work. I think, you know, saying that that is the sole qualification for someone to be on the design review board, if they're terrible in every other way, right, would be a problem. To have some sort of evaluation favoring that kind of skill set, all else being equal, I think is kind of what we'd all like to see. But the person's got to be fit for service, and you know, not have some other deficits that you know would make up for it. I don't think that's your intention.
No. I mean, what you're, for the most part, I think what you mean is exactly what I agree with. Is it's more of just giving a guidance to future councils about, because I mean, we always get you know, the ordinance or muni code beforehand when we're doing. Sorry, I'm still recovering from the cold, but yeah, it's just more of just a guidance to council members that this is what you ought to be looking for on these boards. And maybe a little bit of just in that manner, it might sway them just a little bit.
So I would imagine we would, when advertising a position where that skill set is needed because someone has gone off the board with that skill set, that we would mention that we would
Encourage
like
those
to
with those
see, or
skills
we'd
to apply.
encourage people with an architectural background to apply or something like that. So,
Right.
I agree, preferred qualifications.
right, okay.
Okay, yeah, we can prepare some language for review by the council to provide some guidance there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to make sure we talk to landscape architects and architects about, you know, what are the qualities involved in that? I mean, do we want artists as well? Do we want, you know, I mean, I just think we had arguably the most transparent and we did have the most transparent and only process in the history of IB where the entire council was involved in the interviews. And we arguably had some of those qualified folks to ever apply for positions. I remember the quality of the applicants was staggeringly high, and we had folks from the construction and development industry do that. So I want to make sure that we don't forget process. And it was an incredibly impressive process, and all of you asked questions and were involved. So I just want to make sure that we're acknowledging that, like it wasn't just somehow some random, you know, pick a number out of the bag.
You know, the people, the resumes I read from all the people, it was amazing group of people applying for those positions. No doubt.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
the folks that are maybe here that are on the committee
Not
aren't thinking that the
criticizing
council
them.
is sort of like
No,
saying, hey, they don't know what
no,
they're doing
they
or
were
something. Right.
excellent.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I can really support this. I think that it speaks to the fact that when we have a vacancy on one of our boards or commissions, that we are really doing some due diligence and we are authentically looking for people who fit those qualifications. Of course, we're not looking to preclude anybody either. But I remember in the past when we'd have the same person apply for every position that was available and didn't fit any position at all. So I think that that kind of takes care of that. I too was surprised and amazed and pleased at the quality of people who applied for our last round of vacancies. It was staggering to see the quality of people that wanted to participate and help guide the city forward. I think that this, as you were saying, Councilmember Bilbray, this is a guidelines, and I would like to see. It's kind of, I look at it as when you are looking for a contractor for a project. You know, that these are in certain in certain qualities, they would certainly receive a higher ranking and consideration if they did possess some of the skill sets that we're looking for.
Yeah, and I think the mayor did conduct a rather collaborative process, and, I think that was well received by the council as well.
I'd just like to say on that, since it looks like our consensus is to go ahead with this, that I'd like us to find a way to, well, I commend the mayor for having the open process and allowing the city council members to, participate in the interviews. I think that was really good. I think we ought to repeat that when we do have vacancies on the commissions. And I don't know how we would lock that in.
That's great. Yeah, that's
But I think it was a process, everybody that was transparent, everybody, the council was involved. We attracted great candidates. And I would just like to see that continued.
Well, maybe that's something we do I know, we had a strategic planning session. Maybe it's something we do at a meeting after January in the new year, where we talk about the whole process for selections for all the committees and, what committees we want to see and evaluate that.
Part of a retreat
Yeah, I
for
think
the
it'd be
new
great.
members.
That'd be
or-
awesome.
Okay, we can kind of run the timing that way if you guys think that that'd be a good
And
discussion.
maybe just even talk to other cities and see what they do, and how,
I'm just recording the consensus that we all appreciated that process and would like it to continue.
Absolutely.
Great. Awesome.
Noted. The final item that Councilman Bilbray would like the city council to discuss are the procedures to reconsider a motion. Right now, our ordinance reads, a motion to reconsider an action by the city council may only be made at the meeting at which the action was taken. A council member on the prevailing side must make such a motion. The motion may be made whenever there is no motion pending. The motion takes precedent over all the motions and is subject to debate. And then it kind of goes on to a few other things like making sure that the people that were there are still in the room. I'm kidding. Kind of need a flow chart for that. Councilman Bilbray and the city attorney and I have talked quite a lot about this. Councilman Bilbray would like to eliminate the time requirement associated with section 2.12.120 by eliminating the first sentence. In talking with the city attorney, that could be problematic at times. Not so much when you are making motions that are policy driven of the city council, but take a land use decision where someone is going to come up and you provide approval and they leave based on that approval and start processing their application or going to the coastal commission or whatever the next step in the process is. And then for you to come back and reconsider that would be difficult, or would at least cause some challenges for us. And so one of the things.
Excuse me, Mr. Hall, when you say challenges, do you mean potential litigation?
Sure. Yeah, they could sue her. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it could certainly lead to some concerns at a legal level. And so I think the point is that what Councilman Bilbray was concerned about was the potential for a council member to make a motion or to vote against a motion, but essentially be on the non-prevailing side of a motion and not liking that and constantly bringing that issue up again and again for reconsideration.
Pretty much what I just did with the planning commission.
Pretty much what he just did tonight.
I mean, I'm an old, I'm Robert Rules, but the fact is that when our Muni code doesn't state it, and I will use the rules to my advantage. But I do think that it could become a problem in the future, and think that it needs to be nipped in the butt now.
So the discussions we've had, remember, there's really kind of two things going on here. There's the idea of reconsidering a previous motion, which I think that the council could place some regulations around reconsidering a previous motion. What we can't do is inhibit a council member from making a motion in the future, or a future council making a motion. So the reality of how this plays out is any council member, even if they're on the losing side, we have a process for a council member to put an item on an agenda, and if it passes, they could keep bringing it up continually. And in fact, despite the way I believe at times Councilman Spriggs feels about the Brown Act, any of you could make a motion right now. See, he can make a motion that he loves the Brown Act. Now,
that's not on the agenda, so you couldn't take a vote on it, but you can't, my point is, you can't stop a council member from making a motion. So the challenge I think that Jennifer is raising from a legal standpoint is that it can be problematic for the council to reconsider a motion at a future date on some of the decisions you make, because people rely on those decisions, especially a land use decision, approval of a development or something like that. So so clearly, staff would recommend that this be under advisement a little bit longer and make sure we don't put you and the city in any kind of a circumstance where a reconsidered motion could cause legal concerns for us.
Yeah, I can see the wisdom of not revisiting something months later that people have relied on in the meantime, whether it's a contractor, whether it's a citizen doing a remodel, or whether it's, the expectation that some speed bumps are going to be put in or something in a neighborhood. I think that's a problem. On the other hand, I can see where we may have a public hearing, we may have a thorough discussion, there may be tempers flaring or whatever, and we pass a motion, and then towards the end of the meeting, when we're having the budget discussion, and we're all sort of calmed down and falling asleep or whatever.
Hey, sorry.
The idea strikes that, hey, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe we made a mistake, but the agenda item is gone. So what this essentially is, in this first sentence, it says that it has to be, the motion to reconsider has to be at the meeting at which the action was taken. Seems to imply an exception to the idea that it's a past agenda item. We've acted on it. We're down on another agenda item now, and somewhere down there, someone wants to refer back to an earlier decision, and this allows that, right?
Potentially, yes. There's some other language here, as long as.
But it's, yeah, okay. But it has to be someone who voted for it, right?
Correct.
And they're having second thoughts. Things have
Oh, well,
cooled down.
or voted against it on the prevailing side. It could have been
Voted against it on the prevailing side, right?
I found the video of the little traffic cars that I first watched when I first joined the council less confusing than this. Honestly, anybody's watching on YouTube absolutely has no idea what we're talking about.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I can understand the wisdom of having this kind of a provision in there as kind of a safety valve provision that allows us to go back and think through something at the same meeting, right? If it's raised by a member who was on the majority side and is now saying, hey, wait a minute, I didn't think of this, or I didn't think of that, or whatever. But to have that take place weeks or months later, to me, is problematic. And I think if you guys want to study that further, fine. But I just don't see how that's gonna work at this point in time, unless you can demonstrate that it is a better way to go. I don't see it.
Well, it is short notice, but I would agree that I think the board in general, even if I'm off it, ought to revisit this in the future.
So we'll put this one on ice for a little bit. Great. Yes, I think we've received direction from the council, and we will.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.